But my dad always said as well, actions speak louder than words. This is my dad's wisdom. I mean, if you look at all the prophets, their example was exemplary. They were the most saintly people ever to live on this earth. They were, like the Prophet Muhammad, he was a walking Quran. Everything that is in the Quran, he lived it. All his actions were the Quran, which is why we follow his Sunnah. Because in him we see how the Quran is to be applied in a human being's life. And so because of it, we look at his example through the Sunnah for our guidance in our day-to-day things. And Jesus ﷺ gave lots of good advice, again, in this chapter. Further on, he says, not everybody who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father, who is in heaven, will enter. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name cast out demons, and in your name perform many miracles? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. Whoa. Now, who calls Jesus Lord? Us Muslims don't call Jesus Lord. And the early Christians, Allah knows best. But the thing is, this can cause confusion. I mean, obviously we have lords in the House of Lords, so Lord in English doesn't necessarily mean, you know, Almighty Allah, but it can cause confusion if people start to call the Prophet Lord, as they did with Hazrat Isa alayhi salam. And it makes some interesting points here. There are going to be people who will be prophesying in the name of Jesus alayhi salam, and they will be casting out demons and performing many miracles in his name. But some of these people, they will be in front of him on the day of Qiyamah, and he will say, depart from me, I never knew you. And this is also related in the Holy Quran. And behold, Allah will say, O Jesus, son of Mary, did you say unto men, worship me as my mother, and my mother as gods in derogation of Allah? He will say, glory be to thee. Never could I say what I had no right to say. Had I said such a thing, thou wouldst indeed have known it. Thou knowest what is in my heart, though I know not what is in thine. For thou knowest in full all that is hidden. But I bet you didn't realise this is actually in the Bible as well. Slightly different, but more or less the same meaning. And why? Why would Jesus say, you who practice lawlessness? Lawlessness means people who they're not following Allah's law. The criminals, or people that, maybe not so strong as criminals, but people who are in sin. They are not living according to the laws that Allah has done. What their actions are haram. Now, the Jewish people, they have the law. The Yehudi have the law. It's called the Torah. In the Torah, if you look at the Torah law and compare it to Sharia law, there is so much in common. You know, halal and the kosher, so many things. And Isa alayhi salam, he would have been following the Jewish law. He actually said, I came to confirm the law. I didn't come to destroy it. So today, if there are people who are claiming to follow Jesus alayhi salam, and they are not following the Jewish law, they are not really following Jesus alayhi salam. In Islam, we have the law and we have the spirituality. Like Jesus, he taught the law and he taught the spirituality. In Islam, we have the Sharia and we have Sufism. Tasawwuf is the purification of the heart through the remembrance of Allah. Now, Isa alayhi salam taught this to his disciples, but he also told them, follow the law. It might not be exactly how we do today, but something similar he taught to his disciples, which is why we're told in the Quran that the Jews are closer to us in the law, but the Christians are closer to us in love. They have that spiritual side, but they're missing the law. And the Jews in general, they, you know, obviously it doesn't apply in every case, but generally speaking, They concentrate more on the law and less on the spirituality and the love. Imam Malik is reported to have said, whoever studies the law and didn't study Sufism will be corrupted, and whoever studied Sufism and didn't study the law will become a heretic, and whoever combined both will find the truth, will find the haqq.
Subhanallah.
Early Christianity and classical Islam actually have a great deal in common. While the spiritual element of both of the faiths is most important, the law mustn't be forgotten. We're being commanded to live according to the law of Allah. All through all the prophets commanded us to live, especially from Musa alayhi salam onwards. In Matthew, Jesus said, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or stroke shall pass from the law until it is all accomplished. Whoever then annuls one of the least of these commandments," that's like the law, "and teaches others to do the same, shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever keeps and teaches them, he shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I say to you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the scribes and the Pharisees," that's the Jewish scholars and priests, "you will not enter the kingdom of heaven." And Allah, this was in Matthew 5, 17 to 20. And Allah confirms this in the Holy Quran. He says, "In their footsteps we sent Jesus, son of Mary, confirming the law that had come before him." That's in Surah 5, verse 46. In the book of Matthew, again in the Bible, Jesus, he actually implores his audience, his disciples, to follow him. He says, "Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and acts on them may be compared to a wise man who has built his house on the rock. And the rain fell when the floods came, and the winds blew and slammed against that house, yet it did not fall, for it had been founded upon the rock. Everyone who hears these words of mine and does not act according to them will be like a foolish man who built his house upon sand. The rain fell and the floods and the winds blew and slammed against the house, and it fell, and great was its fall." Jesus emphasizes that our faith should be based upon sound foundations, such as a house built upon a rock. This way we are far less likely to falter when our faith gets tested. But those whose faith has no foundation will fall as easily as a house built upon the sand. The rock he is referring to is the rock of truth, the haqq of the Holy Quran.